that therapists know how to do really well that I really appreciate is they actually have processes in place where they can actually show you how to just relax your body and come down off of the fear that you have. Because the thing is that fear can be costly. Fear can be very expensive. And let me give an example where fear was extremely expensive for the black community. There's a guy named John Rogers who was a black billionaire in Chicago. And John Rogers, he's a good guy. I met him a couple times and I liked him. He wrote an article where he explained that during the 2007 2008 recession, when the market dipped and everything crashed, he said black people lost bill- billions of dollars because we sold all of our stocks out of fear, right? When the fear hit, and you have traumatized people that scare easily. When the fear hit, we just said, "Oh gosh, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this market because if I don't, I could risk losing everything." And the thing is that people like John and I understand that that was not necessarily a rational fear because and those of you who've been investing or hanging out with me for a while, when we talk about stocks, what have I always said about the stock market going down? What have I always said about whether or not it's going to come back up? What have I always said? And I want you to answer in the chat. And then also, I want to ask you a separate, similar question. Has there ever been a time, give me a yes or no, has there ever been a time in American history where the stock market went down and did not recover? Has there ever been a time it went down and didn't recover? That's like me asking you in your life, a have you ever had a day where you got sick and you didn't come back from the illness? Have you ever had a day where you got so sick that you just died and you literally died and went to heaven? Well, the answer is obviously no, because if you had died, you wouldn't be here. So any story you tell me about getting sick, like if you say, "Oh, Boyce, I was so sick. Oh my goodness." And let me tell you what happened at the end of that story, Boyce. I got so sick, I just died. Like I literally died. I'm talking to you from heaven right now, right? It wouldn't make any sense. Like any story that you tell me about any time in your life where you ever got sick, I'm gonna know the end. I'm gonna know it has some type of happy ending in the sense like I know you didn't die. So in a way, it's like watching the stock market can be like watching a movie. You know how they do in movies, they always make you think that the good guy's gonna get killed, but they never do. They always find a way out. They always find a way to survive to the end. The stock market is like that. The stock market has never had a time where it went down and stayed down. So a lot of the fear people have of market crashes and their overreaction by selling all their stock, that's just them giving money away. That's literally them giving money away. Warren Buffett used to say that when it comes to investing, he said, "My rule is simple." He said, "I want to be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy." So when everybody feels good and everybody's overconfident, everybody's overinvesting, that's when the Warren Buffetts walk away. That's when they say, "Whoa, whoa, this is getting too rich for my blood. This party's getting a little bit crazy. Let me get out of here. Let me get out of this party before the police get called." But when everybody's scared and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, hey, let's get away from the market, stay away from the stock market because things are bad." Well, that's when the Warren Buffett types come in because they're looking to buy undervalued assets. So part of your consciousness lesson when it comes to money is learning how to think like an investor. Investors don't tend to think like people who are not very good at building wealth, and it's kind of counterintuitive. You kind of have to go in. It's like this is why I admire firemen and police officers and stuff like that. Is the instinct whenever something bad goes down, everybody else wants to run away. The police are the ones running toward the crime, toward the problem. That's why I respect good cops. I respect good firemen, stuff like that. The guys that did women that died in 9/11. I respect them because it's not intuitive to do that, to run toward the problem. This morning, my wife and I were coming home from the gym, and there was a guy, it was real icy, and the roads were kind of slick. So we're kind of, trudging along. We do our gym thing every morning. And I looked down the road and I saw this truck on the other side of the street, and the truck had spun around and it was over on our side of the road and like just doing this erratic stuff. And I thought maybe the truck had gotten out of control, but then it looked like the driver was just driving like a lunatic, and we weren't sure if it was road rage. We didn't know what was going on. I stopped it. So here's the deal. My first instinct was I stopped. I just didn't go any further. I was supposed to keep going straight, but this guy was over in the other lane, supposedly coming the opposite direction, but he had just spun around and right in front of me. So my first instinct was just I'm not going there. I don't know what's going on, but I'm staying away from this guy's car. Right. And this is natural. Right. And fortunately, we got past everything was okay. But that's our natural instinct. When something seems to be going bad, our instinct is to run away. The reason that it can be tough for people to become investors is because in financial markets, with stock markets, especially if you invest your money properly and you diversify, if the market goes south, that's when people start pouring their money in. That's when people say, "Oh, great. Okay, everything's cheap. Now it's time for me to buy." Now, this does not work for every stock. Sometimes the stock goes down because there are serious issues with the company and the company will never recover. But if you do this across 100 stocks or 50 stocks, that's typically not true. So remember, fear is a problem when it comes to money because fear costs you money. That's that first thing. It causes you to miss opportunities, miss investments, and stuff like that. If you haven't dug into our stock market investing training in the Black Business School. We're actually meeting today, later on today. So actually, I'm actually going to have to shut this down a little bit earlier. But I'm going to give you guys a link where you can join us if you want to join us for our portfolio power play. In fact, let me look and grab this link. And so y'all got to forgive me. My day, I'm a little bit off today because we got up super early, and I felt so bad that I overslept and everything. It just makes me feel like a buffoon. I'm not used to doing that, but then again, though, maybe I gotta just forgive myself. So I'm gonna go and do that. So thank you for forgiving me if you've done so. If you're still mad at me, I don't blame you. All right, so let me share this link with you guys. I'm gonna put this Zoom link right here in the chat right now, so you can join us. So give me a second here. So the second thing about financial fear is that you should understand is that not only is fear costly from an investing standpoint, uh, but in addition to that, fear actually kills economies. Fear kills everything. Fear kills family. Fear kills relationships. And what do I mean by that? Well, because if you think about it like love and dating, right? There's so many people who there's some women who've been traumatized by men, so they have a fear of men. There are men who've been traumatized by women, so they have a fear of women. So if two people are going on a date and both of them are afraid of being hurt by the other person, do you think that's going to lead to a healthy relationship? What do you think? If each person is literally traumatized, frozen in fear, scared to death, worried, concerned, like just looking for anything to go wrong, like itchy trigger finger. Like the minute one thing goes wrong, the minute he shows up late, I'm out. The minute she cops an attitude, or the minute she shows one thing that worries me, reminds me of my ex-girlfriend, I'm out of here. Right? Do you think that a person like that can have a healthy relationship 9 times out of 10? Yes or no? No, they're not usually going to get together and trust each other enough to endure the ups and downs of relationships. And they're not going to typically get together. They might get together and sleep together and make a baby, but then they're going to break up soon after that, and then the baby will grow up without two parents, like so many of our kids do right now. Um, and it was stuff like this that helped me understand how trauma, which does create a lot of fear, undiagnosed, untreated trauma is the number one problem in our community, particularly when it comes to wealth and family. Excuse me. Wealth and family, two multi-trillion-dollar assets that we give away every generation. Because remember, the big problem with black wealth is not that wealth is low. Wealth is low. That's one big problem. The bigger problem is that wealth is actually going down instead of up. So it's not just where you are, it's where you're going. You're every generation, every year, your wealth is declining, right? So that's an investigation. It's a who done it. Like what's going on? Where's the leak? Like when I brought the plumber to the house the other day. Remember that when I told you I had to go because the guy was here to investigate the leak? That was the first thing we had to figure out is we have all this water in the basement, and we're like, where's the hole? Where's the leak? Well, with black wealth, a lot of my study on this topic was where's the leak? Where's the money going? And so that led us to look into things like student loans. It also led me to look into things like fear and trauma, and how fear and trauma inhibits the ability to create enough trust required for you to build functioning economic ecosystems with one another. Because here's the thing, the same way you build an economy is the same way you build a relationship. The same way you build a business is the same way you build and manage a family. And if you all know, in most families, every day is not a picnic. In most families, you have good days and you have bad days. You have ups, you have downs. And part of your ability to build a family and to maintain a well-functioning family is driven by your commitment to overcoming the ups and the downs that come with being part of a family. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. Let me know if you follow this, right? The fact that I get along with certain relatives is because, if we have a bad day, we have a bad day, but I'm not going to cut off my brother or cut off my sister just because we had a bad day, bad week, bad month, bad year. But if I'm dating somebody, I might cut them off if we have a bad month. Like that happens all the time. And the same thing is true economically. If I have a bad month and if I'm working on a business with somebody, we have a bad couple months and I feel traumatized and something terrible happens, then my trauma response might be to say, you know what, forget it. I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. And the same thing happens in families where people say, oh, no, 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 it was going good. And then he started tripping or she started, whatever. And in fact, one of the rules that I always had was I didn't know if I was going to get married. I really didn't. But I always said two things. I said if I ever get married, I want to marry a black woman. And I said number two, I'm going to really try to prepare my mind so that once I pick the woman I marry, there's nothing she will be able to do that will make me feel like I got to walk away and get a divorce. I'm not going to allow it. So I'm a little weird about it, to be honest with you. People say, oh, well, I got a divorce because my spouse cheated. And they asked me about it. I'm like, well, honestly, if my wife cheated, I don't know if I get a divorce. I probably wouldn't. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. I don't weigh the pros and the cons, but I wouldn't see that as a reason for me to abandon everything I built. I just don't. I'm not saying that it would be okay or that I'd encourage it or be okay with that. But I've always said, like, I don't know if I'd destroy every economic vessel we've created together and all the good things we've done because she just thought another man was attractive or whatever. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not, and I know people have their own opinions about it, but I just honestly, I just prepared myself mentally for that. And part of that was my own healing. And again, this is my weird way of dealing with it. It's not anybody else's journey. I'm not telling anybody how to look at this thing. But I remember saying to myself, I said, a lot of relationships get messed up over things like jealousy. And I don't want to go through life as a jealous man because I think jealousy it makes you look bad, it makes you look weak, it makes you look unattractive. You're trying to control things you can't control. You're not happy with what you have. You're unhappy because somebody else got something that you think belongs to you. I try my best to eliminate jealousy, right? So if I see a man that looks at my wife and says, "Ooh, that's a pretty lady," or a guy hitting on my wife or something, I kind of say, "Yeah, of course he would try to hit on her because she's a pretty lady. I didn't marry an ugly woman, so I understand that. I respect the fact that you see the same thing I see. Now she's my wife, but at the same time, I'm not gonna process it like that. So where am I going with this, other than sounding like a complete weirdo to some people, is to say that the reason that I try my best to think that way is because I said to myself, I want to eliminate every toxic emotion that I have that can cause me to mess up something good, right? I think ego causes you to mess up things that are good. You start a business, everything's going great, money's being made, and you made 50,000, your partner made 80,000, and so you're so mad that they made $30,000 more than you that you walk away and you say, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't do that. In my business deals, I don't do that. I do not care how much money you made. All I look at is what I made. And if you made more than me, then I don't care. Congratulations, I'm happy for you because I count my blessings before I count my curses. I look at how full the glass is before I look at how empty it is. And I do that because in so many scenarios, in my opinion, this is my humble opinion about economics, so many scenarios we will cut off our nose to spite our face. We will burn the whole building down because we did not get every single thing that we think we deserve or because we feel like somebody slighted us or whatever. Now, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I've had scenarios where I just said, you know what, I can't do this. This is too much, right? But most of the time, I would encourage you to really understand what it means to have the durability that's required to maintain a relationship. And then the other thing too is when you're forming these financial relationships, whether it's building a business or building a family with somebody, they're the same thing. A family is it's an emotional and financial entity, right? The black family is a multi-million-dollar commodity. If you want to understand more of my thinking on this, my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, is at drboycebooks.com. You can take a look at that. I talk about it. And I explain to you very clearly how your family is a multi-million-dollar entity, but we just throw it away because we're so quick to go and work for the man and do stuff with the man. And it's like, no, no, your family's a multi-million-dollar entity. But I would encourage you that when you build these entities, I would encourage you to sort of try to think outside the box, right? Don't think like everybody else because everybody else is not a wealth builder. Most people in America are not wealth builders. So in order for you to really build wealth in a meaningful way at a high level, you really are going to have to be a little bit of an oddball. You are going to have to be a little bit different. And I would encourage you to build economic relationships with people who have that same level of durability. So the people that I love to have relationships with in business or friendships or dating or anything like that are just the people where they're just there. They're committed. They're in it. They're not, even if you have a bad day, a bad week or whatever, they're going to try to work it out with you. They're going to try to resolve it. They want to break up as they want to avoid a breakup as much as you do, probably more than you do. So when you make a mistake, they're not going to have an itchy trigger finger and pull the plug on everything that you're doing, and you're not going to do the same thing either because remember, I was quoting to you guys Denzel Washington's movie Crimson Tide, and there was a part in the movie where he says that the enemy in a war is not the other person. You think the enemy is the other side. And they say, well, who's the real enemy? He said, the enemy in a war is the war itself. So what you're avoiding is the fight, what you want to do. And so when you are with a partner, a business partner, romantic partner, anybody, and you run into a conflict, what therapists will teach you, and this is why we partner with so many therapists in the Black Business School with our Black Financial Therapy Department, is what the therapist will tell you is that you cannot look at the other person as your enemy. You have to look at the problem as your enemy. And you have to say, okay, we've got an issue here. Let's see how we can solve this problem together. I need your help. What can I do? What can you do? How can we solve this problem? As opposed to saying you are the problem. You need to stop doing this, right? This is a violation of what they in therapists call this the four horsemen of an argument that you should always avoid in any argument. You should avoid criticism of the other person, contempt for the other person, stonewalling or defensiveness. Criticism, contempt, stonewalling, or defensiveness. Those are things that they say you should avoid. And the thing is, if you look around, everybody's always playing the blame game. Everybody is always destroying, burning their house down, and then feeling better about it because they're saying, well, it's the other person's fault that we burned the house down. Don't matter. Y'all still don't have a house. Neither one of y'all have a house now because y'all chose to burn the house down, and you think that it's okay because you can blame the other party. The Democrats and Republicans do that. And a lot of you can see in plain daylight, this is going to be one of the downfalls of America. If America does fall apart, it's going to be because the Democrats and Republicans are more committed to blaming each other for the problem than they are to actually solving the problem. They won't humble themselves or let go of their egos, because the system's kind of built that way, right? It's built in a way where even if you do try to compromise, you're going to be seen as weak because you're compromising, as opposed to someone who just simply sees the bigger picture. So let's talk about a couple other things when it comes to financial risk. And one, let's see here. So we had talked about things like retirement. Retirement, most just so you know, most Americans are not prepared for retirement. That's going to be an absolute, for lack of a better phrase, let's just say shit show. It's retirement in America is going to be a mess. The boomers are not ready; they haven't saved their money, and then after that is my generation, the Gen X, I guess. We're not prepared. So when retirement happens and the population gets older, America's productivity is going to decline, and a lot of the political energy is going to be put toward making younger people work harder and pay higher taxes to take care of old people who did not prepare. Retirement is something that not only should everybody do it, but retirement planning. But also remember this, that when you're young, I remember when I was in my 20s and I thought, why would I care about investing for retirement? I'm young. That's 40 years away, big deal. But what happens is though, when you're putting that money in your 401k or your IRA, that's an asset that you own. That's an asset that is there for you in case of emergency. It's almost like I visualize it almost like having a big gorilla or a big bouncer that protects you from financial tragedy, financial calamity, right? So you got the big bouncer sitting there, a big pile of money sitting there in your 401k and not doing anything, but just sitting there. And if something goes wrong, you've got protection, right? You got something maybe you can borrow against. If worse comes to worse, you could withdraw from the 401k. Now there will be big penalties for that, but you could even do that. Those assets belong to you. So don't think that retirement is only something that benefits old people. Explain this to your young relatives, your young cousins, your young nieces, nephews, grandchildren, that retirement saving isn't just something you benefit from when you get old. It's something you benefit from when you're younger too, if you do it the right way. And really, just culturally speaking, one of the smartest things my wife's late father named his name was oh gosh Francis Taylor, Dr. Francis Taylor, he taught at Tuskegee for 30 years. The best advice he gave her financially, he was not a financial expert, but he gave her simple advice. He said, when you get a job and you get a 401k and they match that money, max it out. Put as much in there as you possibly can. And that's what my wife did. And so as a result, all this money kept growing. And in some cases, her ignorance about money was actually bliss. When the market crashed in '07, '08, she didn't even know enough about financial stuff to even look at the statement and get worried. She saw the dip a little bit, but she stayed the course, right? She just didn't let the financial fear cause her to overthink it, right? Because sometimes we overthink it or we think we know more than we do, and we end up sort of doing too much, right? You move too much, you're picking at it too much. She just kept on putting money in there. And what happened was, from a fundamental standpoint, she was dollar cost averaging, right? So as stocks got cheaper, she was buying more and more cheap stocks. So when those stocks started to recover, kaboom, all that money, I mean, double and triple and everything else. In fact, there was a stock just the other day I mentioned to you guys, a pharmaceutical company. I don't have the ticker in front of me, but I don't know if y'all saw that sucker went up a lot. I think it went up 150% in the last week or two or something like that. And I saw it, I had it in my portfolio. I like to look and see which stocks have done the best. And this stock had done so well that I was like, ooh, gosh, this is great. So anyway, if you want to get stocks, I could send you stocks that I like every week. Text the word stock to 87948. You can text stock to 87948. And again, not every stock goes up, but this one did, and it was pretty cool. So pharmaceutical companies are interesting because they have what they call jump risk. So pharmaceuticals can sometimes jump really high if they pass a clinical trial or something. So that's what happened with this company. But anyway, so a couple more things when you talk about financial fear. A lot of us have a fear of loss. There are techniques in order to deal with loss that you may want to consider that can help you maintain mental health as you're sort of dealing with loss. One thing I'll tell you about loss when it comes to investing is that every investor loses money, and you got to kind of sort of prepare yourself for that mentally. If the loss is too painful, then maybe you reduce your risk so you're not taking as big of a risk. Now, gentrification is something that is easily prepared for. That just comes from there's SGMT. Thank you, Sheila. Yeah, SGMT. Yeah, I hope you own some of that stock. I bought some and I mentioned it to you guys, and apparently that one did really well. I didn't know when the clinical trial was going to go through, but it looks like it went really well. In case you want to know what I did with that stock, I sold it. I went in and sold most of my shares because I don't have any reason to hold this company long term. But gentrification could have been prepared for if we'd had more of an ownership mentality. If we measure wealth by ownership and not just by income, then that does a lot more in terms of helping us have the right point of view when it comes to our economics. So gentrification was something that was preventable, something that was easily prepared for, all that good stuff, and a lot of us got hit by that. Let's see, the fear of living alone. Yeah, growing older, not have anybody to help you and take care of you. Okay, so with that one, I saw one of you mentioned that. Yeah, that fear is something that is prevalent for a lot of people. A lot of people are not building family or getting married, stuff like that. Or if they get married, we get divorced and stuff like that. And I'm not judging that one way or the other. But the thing about it is that I will just tell you, I didn't see when I got married, I didn't see marriage as just a romantic thing. I saw this as okay, I'm getting to be 50 years old. Maybe I have to think about what kind of person I'm trying to grow old with and what that's going to look like. Not to say I just married my wife so she could take care of me, and anything can happen, right? My wife may not make it, or I may not make it, or we may, whatever, we may not make it, right? So whatever it is, right? But still, though, that sort of preparation for old age. I just think about my parents who are now in their 70s. And as they've gotten older, the things that have helped them sustain themselves as they gotten older is number one, they were deeply committed to each other. Both of them are highly imperfect. I grew up with my parents. I remember when my mother was 22 years old taking me to school. Like that's how far back me and my mother go. She was almost like an older sister because she was 16 when she got pregnant with me. So I saw a lot, and I saw them go through a lot of hard years. I saw their flaws, both of them. I saw them just sort of the thing that maintained their relationship was they had that old school sort of commitment that, okay, my father is very stubborn. He's like, if that's my wife, that's going to be my wife. If that's my responsibility, that's my responsibility. My wife was like, that's my man. You're not getting my man, no matter what, right? And so that's what held them together. Is that completely healthy one way or the other? I don't know. It depends on the situation. But I know that later on, if you were to ask them, "Are you happy that you stuck it out through the hard times?" They would say, "Absolutely, positively, yes." And then the other thing that really sustained them is their investment in children, in their children. So now that they're older, that me and my brother and my sister get together and we make a plan to, to make sure that they have everything they need. So I didn't realize when I was younger that we will be part of their retirement plan. There's nothing that they don't want for it. Whatever they want, we get it for them instantly, right? And so if you go see, me and my wife went to see this movie called American Fiction with Jeffrey Wright, who's one of the best actors in the world. And in this film, they had three siblings. They had two. One parent was gone. The other parent was getting older. She had dementia, and they had three siblings. They were all doctors, and but they didn't. They weren't connected. They all moved away. Well, the sister stayed. The two brothers went off and did whatever. One of them was like on drugs. The other one was kind of angry at his parents, and it became kind of tough to get everybody on the same page to do what was best for their mother. And in fact, the sister dies in the middle of the movie. And not, I mean, it's a spoiler alert. It's a good movie though. You should definitely go see it. And I was looking at this and I said, this is so interesting. This family's almost like mine, right? I'm a PhD, not a real doctor. My wife is a medical doctor. I mean, not my wife. My sister's a medical doctor, and my brother, he's doing well. He does venture capital and these massive $1 million deals or whatever. And so the thing that really made the difference is that somehow, some way, the energy was dealt out in a way where we just stick together with each other. We avoid fighting each other. My sister could do something really terrible to me, and I would do everything I could to avoid fighting my sister because I know that my alliance with my sister is that important. Like I would stand down if my sister came and cussed me out, beat me up, did something terrible. I wouldn't. I'd react very carefully because of the importance of that relationship, and she would do the same thing to me. So neither one of us would either do that to each other. And a lot of this really came from what was really an un almost like an oddly how can I say, oddly old fashioned, perhaps even what's the word, almost, you might almost call it like oppressive patriarchy that my father kind of had. Not that he was disrespectful to people in the family like that, but he was a cop, and he was a black man from the South, and so he had a lot of convictions and principles, about sort of rules and codes of conduct. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm getting at, and this is where, and I'm going to go in a second, and we're going to finish up. I'll give you guys the link if you guys want to join us for the portfolio power play. So I actually have to run to that, but this is the point I want to make. When I look back at my dad, the reason I thank him all the time, he wasn't my biological father, he raised me, is that he kind of thought, honestly, he kind of, you know, I don't know if it's because he was a soldier or a cop, and I believe cops are kind of gangsters, like they kind of have a gang affiliation kind of mindset. When, not to say he was a bad cop, but he just sort of was a guy that maintained control of his household. He protected and defended us vigorously. There was a consistency there that was never going to be deviated from. And he also taught us that family is more important than anything. So you don't fight with your siblings. You have you take care of your loved ones, and really this code of conduct carried down with us as siblings, and we just don't, to this point, we've never had a time when I see families where they say, I haven't talked to my brother in 2 years, or my sister, I don't mess with my sister no more. That's just not a world that we understand. We don't. That's blasphemous, right? And again, not putting my family on a pedestal. I'm not trying to do that. What I am saying, here's where I'm getting at. And this is what I want you to understand, is that number one, out of the box thinking is one of the keys to protecting anything that you have that's valuable. You cannot think like everyone else because most people in our society aren't capable of maintaining any sort of group cooperation on a massive level. It's very unfortunate, but that's the society we live in. It's very individualistic, right? I grew up believing that the group was always more important than the individual. And that, again, that's not me telling you how to think about it, but if you go to China, China does that too. China has a lot of power because they're raised from birth to understand that what you want, what you need, how you feel is never more important than the group. Now, does that feel oppressive sometimes? Yeah. I mean, when it comes to individual liberties, China does not lead the world in individual liberties, but let me tell you what they do lead the world in. They lead the world in economic warfare. China, if you any country that messes with China economically is going to get its butt kicked. Why? Well, because the Chinese, they move like a big giant. That's just a big giant monster that just we're in complete lockstep with the monster's made of a billion people, and it's like a billion people all sort of just committed to the same ideas. And again, it takes a lot to get there, right? A lot of the thinking that creates a country like that is stuff where we say, "Oh God, how could they do that to people?" Whatever. but it makes them strong, right? And so I bring that up not to say this is what you should do, but to say that if you want to talk about a world of economic warfare where everything is about being gang affiliated and having some group that you're connected to, where the loyalty is there, the accountability is there, and everyone's sort of doing the same thing, this is the stuff that works, right? And this gives you just another option, another direction you can go when it comes to how you build the system around you, how you build your family, how you raise your kids, how you develop your friendships, how you build your businesses, how you build your relationships. Almost everything that really works in society must be built on some sort of symbolic code of conduct and code of behavior that works. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this extensively in the book Powerdomics. And these codes of behavior are part of what keep you safe. That's part of what reduces your risk. Because just like remember when you were little and I was asking you all that, I said, remember did anybody remember the family that had like 8 kids and all 8 kids would fight for each other? Right? If you beat up one, you were gonna end up fighting 8 people. Like nobody ever messed with that family because they were like a little street gang, right? They would all show up on your doorstep waiting for you to come outside, right? So you didn't mess with any of them, even the little goofy one or the obnoxious one. You know, I knew a family like that. I kid you not. I'm gonna tell y'all this stupidly ghetto story. Then I'm actually gonna go because I'm 4 minutes late. But there was this little kid that was getting on my nerves. He was about a year younger than me, and his whole family had moved from Detroit. And I love y'all in Detroit, but y'all not normal. Y'all know y'all some irregular people up in Detroit, especially coming down to Kentucky, y'all little country butts. So this kid was getting on my nerves. He was picking all these fights with me. And I wasn't trying to fight this kid. He just wanted to fight, but he was little and I didn't care. So I just like pushed him down, like, get out of my face, man. What do you want? 'Cause I was about maybe 16, 17. He was like 15. Do you know that when I pushed him down, he goes home and creates, you know how it is. Somebody will cause a fight and then make themselves the victim, right? So he goes home and tells his cousins and his older brothers that I was bullying him, beating him up. Somebody literally came back to the basketball court with a shotgun. This guy came to the court with a shotgun, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So, mind you, this is my dysfunctional childhood, and I don't know how I was actually able to talk my way out of it. I just explained. I said, "Look, I'm not picking, whatever." It worked out. I didn't get shot, but I remember just thinking, "Okay, I'm not gonna mess with him no more because he's apparently got backup, and it's not fair because life is not fair." But they had a code of conduct. They just sort of vouch for each other. Now, obviously that's a weird example, but I really encourage you to really understand that group, that gang, that clique, that team, that cooperation is how you get power in this country. So figure out who your group is going to be and be committed to that group. And I guarantee you that you're going to see your economic power grow. All right. So anyway, have a good day, everybody. And again, you can meet us in the next Zoom if you want to. I gotta go. I'm 5 minutes late. So you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning, also at 10 a.m.